Okay, everybody. Hey, it's Dr. Mike here with Chapter 22 and 23. A couple of short chapters, actually, as we finish up the course here. So let's take a look. Organization development in non-industrial settings, healthcare, school systems, public sector, family-owned. So public sector might be cities, county governments, the military, anything that's not an organization as we think of a typical organization for business, for profit. So let's have a look, see what it says here. So here are the learning objectives. You can take a look at those. Stop the slideshow if you like. Okay, trends in healthcare. So really what this chapter is just sort of informative. What is going on in healthcare these days? And you can look at these bullets. There's probably nothing new. You haven't heard about healthcare reform, of course, in a very big way. Changing incentives, reimbursement models, meaning these are different approaches to reimbursing providers in healthcare. And we're trying to find new ways to use insurance companies and so on. Quality and cost as a strategic and regulatory imperative. So in order for a healthcare institution to survive, they certainly have to deliver quality at a reasonable cost in order to compete. And as we know, healthcare institutions do compete with each other. Hospitals do compete with each other's clinics. They compete too. Consolidation of traditional industry segments. So what was once a monstrous number of independent hospitals is becoming consolidated. We see healthcare systems taking over other healthcare systems. Industry segment lines and integration across different segments. So hospital systems taking on hospital systems. We're seeing a huge change, just like we saw with the airlines and the banks and other big industries, that they all became consolidated. We used to have 100 and more airlines in this country. Now we have roughly 5 or 6 big ones. Rise of informatics and e-health. So the digital world is invading healthcare, aging workforce, and changing patient demographics. So we got about 4 or 5 different age groups actually in the workplace now. The baby boomers are still hanging on, and the 4 or 5 generations after them are still coming along. So how about, if you're an OD person, how about practicing in healthcare? And I've done that, actually worked internally as a OD practitioner in a big hospital here in Phoenix years ago. And it's interesting because you're internal and you're salaried and you're doing exactly what it says on the screen, developing strategic, emotionally intelligent leaders and teams. I did a lot of work with leaders and some team building. Trying to help the organization. There wasn't a lot of shifting to a new paradigm back then, but they're getting there now. Newer systems, newer ways of thinking and working together. Aligned cultures, meaning different cultures from different healthcare organizations that come together. So ABC hospital buys XYZ hospital, and you have to figure a way to align those cultures. Not easy. Many organizational mergers and acquisitions fail because of inability to merge the cultures. Delivering comprehensive learning programs, obviously. Creating engaged employees. So these are the things that are available for OD people. Trends affecting schools. So school systems, high schools, grade schools, probably even universities. Changing nature of communication and learning. Well, yeah, the digital world is upon us. We're learning just like you are, e-learning. Right now, evolution of the workplace and required skills. Workplaces are changing. Think of the difference between, General Motors in the 1920s and Google right now. Huge difference in the kinds of skills and what goes on in those different companies. Increased diversity and competition. It's a no-brainer. Tough economic times. We all know about that. And failed reform efforts. Let's see, No Child Left Behind is probably an excellent example of a trend affecting school system that really didn't work like it was intended to work. OD in the school systems, what could you do for them? You can do what you see on the screen. Professional learning, communities, trust, learning relationships, vision work, teaching, action, research, practice in theory, grounding practice in theory so that they have a theory that they're holding to as they do what they do and run their school. Growing leaders and leadership locally, and using technology as a catalyst for intervention, innovation. Trends affecting the public sector. You can see these federal, public sector, and Americans leading off those bullets. Federal, state, local governments. public sector organizations called to become more citizen-focused. Americans' trust, satisfaction, and participation in government is at an all-time low, and we probably all are aware of that. Values and structures of public sector organizations. So now you're working in the public sector, maybe for a city. I do a lot of work with cities and governments. And values focus on governing toward greater public good and to demonstrating responsiveness. So, yeah, cities are monstrously hierarchical and convoluted in their ways and means of doing things, and very difficult work sometimes, but can be quite rewarding if you like working in tall bureaucratic structures with lots and lots of OD-related problems. So, characteristics of public sector organizations, and yeah, think of your city government wherever you live. Lots of decision makers, lots of stakeholders, lots of intergovernmental relations between groups, like you can see, federal, state, local governments, and so on. So what do you do in the OD and public sectors? Strategic change. Cities have to change. They have to re-engineer. They have to look at their workflow, their design, their structure. They have to be flexible, development-oriented. What you can do, tailor interventions to fit these problems, and whatever it is it might need. I've taken, team building, intergroup team building, personality work, organizational diagnosis, all those kinds of things into cities who are clients of mine. 3 systems in a family-owned. So now we're shifting to family-owned business. Real intriguing. I've done a little bit of this. About 3 or 4 groups where you have the family. Not only do they own it, you're part of the family. So here's in my case, the CEO and his daughter, and the CEO's brother. So we got father, daughter, uncle, brothers here, and then the father and the brother owned this piece. And then the business, of course, is participated by everybody. But right here in this area here between ownership and the business, right here, these 2 circles are the shareholders' agreement between who owns it and what the business does. So this is where we see a lot of problems that the ownership, the family, doesn't see eye to eye on what the business should be doing. And then you get down here and you get into family business protocol policies and the rules. What are the rules that the entire family agrees to, regardless of whether they're owners or not? So here's the daughter having something to say about the business, but here is the dad and the uncle having something to say about ownership. Very interesting. If you're going to work with family-owned businesses, just plan to do a little bit of family therapy. You might want to get trained in that first. Okay, parallel planning processes. Family, again, we got a family over here and a business over here. The core goals of the family. This is all about what's important to your family, the kind of commitment you have to the family vision, as an enterprise, what does it want? Over here then is the business, the family business philosophy, whatever that might be, the commitment, the strategy of the business, where it's trying to do, where you want it to go, and then the plan for that. And of course, all these play back and forth on one another, and it's very difficult, if impossible, for family-run businesses, for people in them, to keep their comments about the business out of the family and the family out of the business. Critical issues, you can see them right there. Entering or leaving the business as a family member, ouch. Conflicts, rivalry, ownership problems, selecting a new leader, family, business, growth, and wealth. OD interventions for families, entering and contracting. What your task is to create a safe emotional environment, get them to trust you. That's not difficult sometimes. If it doesn't work out, then you're not going to do much good there. Diagnosing the organization, being confidential. Feedback planning, build good relationships, good communications practices, and implementing and evaluating a change. That's chapter 22. Chapter 23 is a short chapter. I'll just keep going right through this. There are the learning objectives. So let's see what we have here. Trends within OD and their impact on the future. So let's see. Traditional return to humanistic values. That's a trend among the sort of the traditional thinkers out there, traditional practitioners. Increasing the focus on process intervention. And by process we mean not so much what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Anywhere from how you're thinking to having a conversation with one person to a small group to a large organization. Lots of process work. I really enjoy process interventions. More on the pragmatic or practical side of things, where are we going? Trends are heading in increasing They're emphasizing the values of effectiveness and increasing the focus on relevant practice, doing things that are relevant for the organization, making a difference. And in academia, where you are right now, of course, what the trend is emphasizing the values of understanding, prediction, and control, what that means in OD, and what's reasonable and what isn't. Probably if you enjoyed what Peter Block has to say, he says this understanding, prediction, and control can be problematic at some point. Also, in the academic world, searching for variables that explain change and effectiveness. Basically, how are we in the academic community learning about change management, what causes change, how to help organizations effectively change. So OD will have more conflict in the short term, be more integrated in the long term. Okay, that sounds great. Contextual trends and their effects on OD's future. There's the economy. How is that having an effect? Well, things are getting more global. The economy is getting more global. The economy is more concentrated wealth. The economy more concerned ecologically and socially. And you can see the others there: workforce, technology, organizations. All of what's happening in those areas, the economy, workforce, technology, and organization, is contributing, at least in the minds of our authors, into what organization development will be in the future. More involved in driving effectiveness in a broader range of organizations, so we'll be working with effectiveness in a wider or broader type of range. More involved in supporting technical and managerial innovation. Yeah, we weren't too big into the technical side of things like in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, but now, how can you not be? More concerned with social and ecological sustainability. We talked about that last week. So what are the implications? We'll be more involved in driving effectiveness in a broader range of organizations. We just said that: technology, managerial innovation. Yeah, we just said that a minute ago. So that's the end of Chapter 22. It's the end of our time together with these PowerPoint slides. I hope they were useful. Again, they weren't intended to be a replacement for reading the material in the book, kind of an overview of what's in the book. So Chapter 22 is done. The book is done. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you back in class.